I found out my son had been keeping secrets long before I discovered what they really meant. It started on a Tuesday evening in March. I had just returned from a 3-day business trip to Chicago, exhausted and ready to collapse into my own bed. My wife Laura was in the kitchen preparing dinner, and our 8-year-old son Tommy was playing with his toy cars in the living room. Everything seemed perfectly normal, the kind of ordinary domestic scene I'd come home to 1,000 times before. "Hey buddy," I said, ruffling Tommy's hair as I dropped my suitcase by the stairs. "Did you miss me?" He looked up at me with those big brown eyes and nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, Uncle Kevin played video games with me while you were gone. He's really good at Mario Kart." I felt something cold settle in my stomach, though I couldn't have explained why at that moment. Kevin Morrison had been Laura's best friend since childhood. They'd grown up on the same street, gone to the same schools, been inseparable since they were practically babies. When Laura and I started dating 15 years ago, Kevin was already married to his high school sweetheart, Diana. The four of us had become close over the years, spending holidays together, going on camping trips, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries as one extended family. "Uncle Kevin was here?" I asked casually, keeping my voice light. "That's nice. Did Aunt Diana come too?" Tommy shook his head, already focused back on his toys. "Nope, just Uncle Kevin. He stayed over and made pancakes in the morning. They were really good." The cold feeling spread through my chest. "He stayed over? Like overnight?" "Uh-huh. He slept in your bed with Mom. I had a bad dream and went to your room, and they were both there." Time seemed to slow down. I heard Laura calling from the kitchen that dinner would be ready in 10 minutes. I heard the clatter of dishes, the ordinary sounds of our ordinary life. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. "Tommy," I said carefully, crouching down to his level, "when Uncle Kevin stays over, does he always sleep in our bed?" My son nodded matter-of-factly, arranging his cars in a precise line. "Yeah, whenever you go on your trips. Mom says it's okay, because you're not using it anyway." I stood up slowly, my mind racing. There had to be an explanation. A reasonable, innocent explanation. Maybe Kevin and Diana had fought, and he needed a place to crash. Maybe their house had a plumbing emergency. Maybe I was jumping to the worst possible conclusion, based on the innocent observation of a child who didn't understand what he was saying. But deep down, in that place where instinct lives, I already knew the truth. I didn't confront Laura that night. Instead, I played the role of the oblivious husband, eating dinner, helping Tommy with his bath, watching television with my wife on the couch like we'd done 1,000 times before. But I was watching her now, really watching her. Looking for signs I'd missed, clues I'd been too blind or too trusting to see. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to things I'd always overlooked. How Laura's phone was suddenly password protected when it never had been before. How she smiled at her screen sometimes, a private little smile that used to be reserved for me. How she'd started going to the gym 3 times a week, claiming she wanted to get back in shape, but never invited me to join her. The following week, I told Laura I had another business trip scheduled. Her eyes lit up for just a fraction of a second before she arranged her face into an expression of disappointed understanding. "Chicago again?" she asked. "Detroit this time. 3 days, same as usual. I leave Tuesday morning." "We'll miss you," she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips felt like ice. I didn't go to Detroit. Instead, I checked into a hotel 15 minutes from our house in suburban Ohio. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad movie, but I had to know. I had to see with my own eyes whether my son's innocent comments and my growing suspicions had any basis in reality. Tuesday evening, I parked my car 3 houses down from our colonial-style home and waited. The spring sun set slowly, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I watched Kevin's silver Honda pull into our driveway at 7:30. He walked up to our front door like he owned the place, like he belonged there. My wife opened it before he could knock, and even from a distance, I could see how she looked at him. How she'd never looked at me, not even in the beginning. They didn't even wait until Tommy was asleep. Through our living room window, I watched them on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. They looked comfortable together, natural, like they'd been doing this for years. Maybe they had been. I sat in my car for 3 hours, watching the lights in my house. Watching my life unravel in real time. At 10:30, Kevin's car was still in the driveway. At 11, the living room lights went off. The bedroom light came on. 15 minutes later, that went off too. I didn't sleep that night. I drove around our small town, past the high school where Laura and Kevin had graduated together, past the park where we'd had Tommy's birthday parties, past the church where Laura and I had gotten married. Everything looked different now, tainted by this new knowledge. Wednesday, I repeated the surveillance. This time, I brought a camera with a zoom lens. I felt sick doing it, felt like I was violating something sacred, but the trust between us was already shattered. I was just documenting the pieces. Kevin arrived earlier this time at 6. He brought dinner, Chinese takeout from Tommy's favorite restaurant. I watched them eat together like a family through the kitchen window. I watched Kevin help Tommy with what looked like homework. I watched my wife touch Kevin's arm, laugh at something he said, lean into him in a way that spoke of deep familiarity and comfort. But I needed more than circumstantial evidence. I needed absolute proof. Thursday morning, I called Diana Morrison. We'd always gotten along well, and her voice sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. "James, how are you? Kevin mentioned you were in Detroit this week." My heart hammered in my chest. "Actually, Diana, I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee? It's important." There was a pause. "Is everything okay? You sound strange. Please, just meet me. Luigi's coffee house in an hour?" She agreed, and I could hear the worry in her voice. Diana Morrison was a petite woman with auburn hair and kind eyes that had always reminded me of my own mother. When she sat down across from me at the small corner table, those eyes were full of concern. "What's going on, James? You're scaring me." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken the previous night. Kevin's car in my driveway. Kevin and Laura visible through the windows, sitting close, touching, being together in ways that friends shouldn't be. I watched the color drain from Diana's face. Her hands started shaking so badly, she had to set down her coffee cup. "How long?" she whispered. "I don't know. I just found out. My son mentioned that Kevin's been staying over when I travel for work. Diana, I think this has been going on for a while." She stared at the photos, tears streaming silently down her face. Then she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something hard and determined beneath the hurt. "Where is he right now?" "I don't know, but I'd bet anything he's at my house." Diana stood abruptly. "Let's go." "Diana, wait." "No." Her voice was steel. "I want to see this with my own eyes. I need to see it." We drove separately to my house. It was just before noon on a Thursday. Kevin's car was parked in my driveway, bold as brass. Diana pulled in right behind it, and I parked on the street. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my front door. The house was quiet, too quiet. Tommy would be at school for another 3 hours. We found them in my bedroom. They weren't in bed, thank God, but they were close enough. Laura was wearing one of my old t-shirts and nothing else, sitting on the edge of the bed. Kevin was shirtless, sitting beside her, his hand on her knee. They were talking quietly, intimately, completely unaware that their world was about to explode. Diana made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob, and they both turned to look at us. The expression on Laura's face was something I'll never forget. Not guilt, not immediately. First, there was confusion, then shock, then a dawning horror as she realized what this meant. Kevin went pale, absolutely white, frozen in place like a deer in headlights. "James," Laura breathed. "You're supposed to be in Detroit." Diana laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "That's what you have to say. That's what matters to you right now." "Diana, I can explain," Kevin started, but Diana cut him off. "Explain what?" "Explain how you've been sleeping with her. How you've been lying to me. How you've been destroying 2 families." "It's not like that," Laura said, standing up and grabbing a robe from the closet. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Make me understand how my wife and my best friend ended up like this." Kevin found his voice. "James, listen, it just happened. We didn't mean for it to." "When?" Diana demanded. "How long has this been going on?" They looked at each other, and I saw something pass between them. A connection, a bond forged in betrayal. 2 years, Laura said quietly. "It started 2 years ago. 2 years. 2 years of lies, of deception, of living a double life." I thought about all the times Kevin had been in our house, at our dinner table, playing with our son. I thought about all the business trips I'd taken, all the nights I'd left my family believing they were safe and cared for. "Get out," I said to Kevin. "Get dressed and get out of my house." "James." "Now." Kevin scrambled for his clothes, pulling on his jeans and shirt with shaking hands. Diana watched him with an expression of pure contempt. "I'm filing for divorce," she told him flatly. "And everyone is going to know exactly why." Diana Morrison turned out to be a woman of her word. By Monday morning, everyone in our small town of Fairhope knew about the affair. Diana had gone to Kevin's workplace, a local insurance office where he was a senior agent, and confronted him in front of his colleagues and clients. She'd brought printed copies of my photographs, voice messages she'd found on his phone, evidence of hotel receipts and dinner dates. "Everyone should know what kind of man Kevin Morrison really is," she'd announced to the office. "Everyone should know that he's been having an affair with his best friend's wife for 2 years. That he's been lying to everyone, destroying 2 families for his own selfish pleasure." She'd done the same at Laura's workplace, a dental office where she worked as a receptionist. The small-town gossip mill had done the rest. Within 48 hours, everyone knew. The parents at Tommy's school. The members of our church. The neighbors we'd barbecued with for years. Everyone. Laura was mortified. She called me dozens of times, sent hundreds of texts, begging me to talk to her, to let her explain. I ignored them all. I was staying at the hotel, had taken a leave from work, and was spending my days consulting with a divorce attorney. The truth, when it finally came out fully, was worse than I'd imagined. The affair hadn't started suddenly or accidentally. It had been building for years, a slow burn of attraction and emotional intimacy that had finally crossed a line during a particularly vulnerable moment. Laura had been feeling neglected, she claimed. I'd been traveling too much for work, focused too much on my career. Kevin had been there to listen, to understand, to make her feel valued. As if that justified anything. The real bombshell came 3 weeks after the initial discovery. Laura called me from an unknown number, and I made the mistake of answering. "James, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant." My blood ran cold. "Congratulations to you and Kevin." "James, please. How far along?" There was a long pause. 12 weeks. 12 weeks. 3 months. I did the math quickly in my head, thinking back to when we'd last been intimate. It had been before that, much before that. Our physical relationship had been dying for months, I realized now. She'd been pulling away from me long before I'd noticed. "It's his," I said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "James, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. But she had hurt me. She'd devastated me, destroyed the life we'd built together, shattered the trust that had taken 15 years to build. And for what? For someone who'd been willing to betray his own wife, his own marriage, his own best friend. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Laura wanted to reconcile, kept insisting that she'd made a mistake, that she still loved me. But how could I believe anything she said anymore? How could I trust a single word that came out of her mouth? We split everything down the middle. The house went up for sale, and we agreed to divide the proceeds. Tommy would spend time with both of us, though the custody arrangements were complicated by the fact that Laura was pregnant with another man's child. My son, young as he was, understood that something fundamental had changed in our family. He asked questions I didn't know how to answer. Diana's divorce from Kevin was finalized first, in June. She got the house, most of their assets, and primary custody of their 2 daughters. Kevin, it turned out, had been lying about more than just the affair. He'd been siphoning money from their joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms and gifts for Laura. Diana took him for everything she could, and I couldn't blame her. My divorce was finalized in August, 5 months after I'd discovered the truth. It was a hot, humid day, the kind that makes you feel like you're breathing through a wet towel. I signed the papers in my attorney's air-conditioned office, my hands steady, my mind numb. Laura signed separately. We couldn't be in the same room anymore, without one of us breaking down. Usually her, sometimes me. The last time I saw Laura was at the final court hearing. She was 6 months pregnant, showing visibly now, carrying Kevin's child. She'd moved into Kevin's apartment, a small 2-bedroom on the other side of town. They were going to raise the baby together, she'd told me through her lawyer. They were going to try to make it work, to build a life from the wreckage of the ones they'd destroyed. I wanted to feel angry. I wanted to feel rage, hatred, a burning desire for revenge. But mostly I just felt tired. Tired and sad and older than my years. Tommy adjusted slowly to the new reality. He spent weekdays with me in my new apartment, weekends with Laura and Kevin. He'd have a half-sibling soon, a baby brother or sister who would be a constant reminder of how our family had fallen apart. Diana moved away in September, took her daughters, and relocated to Cleveland, where her sister lived. She sent me a message before she left. "Thank you for showing me the truth. I know it hurts now, but we're better off knowing. We deserve better than people who could betray us like that." She was right. We did deserve better. The baby, a girl they named Emma, was born in December. I saw the announcement on social media, saw the pictures of Laura and Kevin beaming with their newborn. They looked happy. Maybe they were. Maybe destroying 2 marriages and devastating their families had been worth it to them. Maybe they'd found something real in the wreckage. I didn't care anymore. Life moved on because it had to. I focused on being a good father to Tommy, on rebuilding my career, on finding some kind of peace in the chaos. The town gossip eventually died down, replaced by newer scandals and fresher tragedies. People stopped looking at me with pity in their eyes. The whispers faded. A year after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Diana at a coffee shop in Columbus. She was visiting family, she said, and looked good. Healthy. Happy even. "How are you doing?" she asked, and I could tell she genuinely wanted to know. "Better," I said honestly. "Not good, but better." "You?" "The same. It gets easier, doesn't it? The hurt becomes less sharp. You learn to live with the scars." We talked for an hour, 2 people bound together by betrayal, finding comfort in shared understanding. Before we parted, she hugged me tightly. "We survived," she whispered. "That's more than they thought we would." She was right about that too. Tommy asked me once why his mom and Uncle Kevin had hurt us. He was 9 by then, old enough to understand more than I wished he had to. "Sometimes people make choices that hurt the people they love," I told him. "Sometimes people are selfish and weak, and they choose what feels good in the moment instead of doing what's right." "But you still love me, right?" he asked, his voice small. "Always," I promised. "No matter what happens, I will always love you. You're my son, and nothing will ever change that." The house sold in the spring, and I used my share of the proceeds as a down payment on a small ranch-style home on the other side of town. It was a fresh start, a clean slate. No memories of Laura in every room, no ghosts of the life we'd had together. I didn't date for a long time. The idea of trusting someone again, of making myself vulnerable, seemed impossible. But eventually, slowly, I started to heal. The wounds Kevin and Laura had inflicted began to scar over. The pain became something I carried rather than something that consumed me. They're still together, as far as I know, raising their daughter, playing house, pretending that what they have wasn't built on lies and betrayal. Maybe they've convinced themselves that it was worth it. Maybe they've found a way to live with what they did. I don't think about them much anymore. When I do, it's with a distant kind of sadness for the people we all used to be, before everything fell apart. Tommy splits his time between us, and I make sure he knows he's loved, that none of this was his fault, that sometimes adults make terrible mistakes, but that doesn't mean the world is ending. He's resilient, kids are. He's learning to adapt to this new normal, this fractured family arrangement. I'm learning too. Learning to trust again slowly. Learning that not everyone is like Laura and Kevin, that not every relationship is destined to end in betrayal. Learning that I'm stronger than I thought I was, that I could survive something I never imagined facing. The divorce papers are filed away in a box in my closet, along with the wedding photos and the memories of 15 years together. Sometimes I take them out and look at them, trying to remember the person I was before, the person who believed in forever. But mostly I look forward now, not back. Because that's all any of us can do, really. We move forward, we survive, we heal. We build new lives from the rubble of the old ones. And somehow, impossibly, we learn to be okay again. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.